Welcome, Perennial Pride listeners. Thanks for joining me as always. Really excited today as I'm recording this. There's a lot of interesting things going on. Obviously, if you pay attention to the news, there's so much uncertainty with the economy and what's happening with Trump tariffs, and you can see tons of negativity. And this is always a difficult time because there's fear that maybe sets in. There's concern of what's going to happen, but I tried to steer myself and others to think about the positivity. What are opportunities out there that may be coming that you can take advantage of if you're looking? And, it reminds me a lot of a story I once heard about before, and it was something on the lines of like acres of diamonds. And it was, individual man who was seeking a lot of wealth and riches. And you heard all these people were finding gold and diamonds out there. So he sets a course. He goes around hunting around and searching far and wide and mountains and wherever. And he couldn't find it. He just desperately was seeking this external thing that people were talking about, and he could never find it. And unfortunately, through the course of his search, he ends up losing all his wealth and dying broke, and never fulfilling that, always seeking something outside. And ironically, the somebody buys his home, and the person who buys his home is taking a look around the property and is walking along a stream, and I find this massive diamond in the stream, and uncovers it and says he felt very fortunate. And through the course of exploration, finds out that the plot of land that this home was sitting on was one of the biggest areas for diamonds in the land in the area. And it was just ironic that the original homeowner was looking so far and wide outside themselves and what was in their world that they couldn't even see what was sitting in front of them and unlocking some of the treasures that were kind of very close to them. And so sometimes we do want to look for that. We're always looking outside. And I think it's important, just like you're doing today, to kind of absorb some of this education. Look outside yourself to learn more. It's always a good thing. But sometimes you almost need to look inside and think about investing in ourselves, which isn't a more commonly sort of talked about topic. And I had a conversation with somebody more recently. I mean, even though I'm a financial advisor, I find it hugely important that people are investing more in themselves and their education, their skill development. That's going to give them the biggest chance of success in life broadly. But, there's oftentimes we do look for other investments, and not to say that we don't do that, but starting inside first. And so today I want to cover some areas and thoughts for folks who are maybe in transition. Could be, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of people losing jobs and maybe having to transition out of them, or they're in a job they just are just tired of being in, right? They've spent whatever number of years in there and they want something different. They want a new sort of direction in their life that maybe is more fulfilling and rewarding. I'm not sure where to go. Or you're a business owner who's maybe moving on to another endeavor, right? You've maybe maxed out, maybe selling your business. You want to move on and go somewhere else. This is potentially something that can help you too. And certainly for someone like me, when I have kids who are, some son who's in college, and trying to help him sort of discover his path and his journey in life, this may also be helpful to help sort of spend some time reflecting on what are some potential areas that are gold sitting right in front of you and in your world that maybe it's sometimes unrecognizable until you kind of dig a little deeper. How I wanted to start with this is really taking a look and becoming more self-aware. This is something that I've truly appreciated as I've grown and identified things. I went through a process called a blueprint process to really just examine myself in terms of what I truly valued and what was essentially my purpose, cause in life, right? To build more fulfillment, enjoyment, and drive in my life. And that's definitely something that I would encourage people to consider. And there's different ways to go about doing it. But, some of it is even just asking yourself reflective questions on yourself, taking some time to explore on your own, because there's probably a treasure trove of information there that you can use to help you think through things. Like, for instance, what do people come to you for, right? There might be cases where you're in conversation and people come to you for certain topics, right? That they just trust your education or your experiences, your knowledge, and you're able to help them in certain ways, and just maybe connecting the dots on that to see what do people come to you for, what they value from you from an advice perspective that maybe you just take for granted, that it's just innate to you, or just it comes easy to you, whatever the situation, but they come to you for certain things. And that might be a good clue as to maybe where to take things. Maybe you've had some unique experiences in your life. I mean, we all come from different areas, grew up in different areas, went to different schools, and had unique experiences impact us positively or negatively, that really had taught you something super valuable, and you've had to maybe endure a pain or experience that was just so negative that it pushed you to kind of learn something that you may not have done on your own, or a positive experience that took you in a unique direction, both personally or professionally, that could bring value to others somehow. So something like that, maybe exploring that through your history. One of the things, and this is something what maybe you see on Shark Tank often enough, where people are just say, I got this problem that I see all the time, and no one's really solved it, right? And or they've solved it in a less than optimal way. How can you improve upon that solution that you just feel drawn to solving? Like it's a pain point personally for you, and that's usually what typically happens. It's like this is a nuisance for you in some shape or form, and it's just almost having your attention to those things. I see that more these days, like things I kind of take for granted that are pain points, but I'm like, how could you solve for that? Or is there something already exists for this? And there might be, but it may not be the best solution out there. So why not put your brain cells into trying to solve that? And it certainly helps you personally and goes from there. And that's actually how I fell into my financial advisory practice. It was just something I learned to do for myself because it was important to me, and just started learning about it. And it was just a problem that I wanted to solve, and it's helped me kind of pursue a different career. Some of these other topics are broader in nature, and take some maybe really think time, and maybe journaling or something like that. But what do you dream about? And it's interesting when you think about dreaming and what that is, whether you dream of having a lot of money or living a lifestyle, traveling all the time. That might be it, but really expanding upon what that really is. What is that feeling in life you want to have? Because I think part of dreaming is the experiences and how we get to live our lives and do. So, we sometimes forget that as we grow older, is to dream a bit, because we get so sort of entrenched in our worlds and our daily routines and our jobs, and whatever is consuming our days. We often forget about kind of what would we dream if we could. And unfortunately, we probably do more of that when we're younger, but as we kind of get older, we almost like we lose it. So I've given you permission to continue to dream, and obviously I'm encouraging my kids and younger folks to think big and dream. Like, what would you want to feel on a daily basis in your life? What would that look like? And what would you be doing? And let your mind expand on that, what's possible. Other side is probably what is a lot of people gravitate to too, because we're just in our world, like we just our attention is drawn to things to protect us, right? It's our innate sort of coping mechanism to deal with life, right? To protect us, and things that may worry us, cause us fear, right? Or gives us up, makes us upset. Exploring that for yourself, like what are those things in life that really worry you so much, and you wish you could solve for that, or really piss you off, like it's an injustice or something that just is weighs on you in a way that emotionally grabs you, that say, man, that problem is really just not acceptable for yourself or maybe for others. And really taking a clue from that. That's something that's probably meaning from you, and maybe that hits on things that maybe you've experienced in your lifetime, that you say, these are things that, I wish I could solve for that, or help with that, or contribute in some fashion to that is more meaningful to me in my life and creates an impact to this world. Because I think that ultimately we all want to feel like we're contributing and impacting others in our environment or close to us, and certainly our families, in a significant way. And I think we all share that. And so really exploring what that is for you, not what others tell us we're supposed to care about, but what we care about. right? And how we can impact that in our own unique way, given our unique talents and skills and ways of doing things, will all be different, right? Regardless of what industry you're talking about or area, we're all going to have a unique spin on it that's going to be different, regardless of the topic. So imagine, a mom who's, is always planning things, right? They're planning birthday parties and for their kids, but they found they have just a knack for it, and it turned into like a thriving sort of event business that they can do those things for other families and kids that maybe just don't have that skill set or have other priorities. You can create a business to serve that need, or accountant, and I work with a number of accountants. Maybe they get tired of the typical tax prep world, that they start offering tax advice and how to reduce taxes to others on the side. You can turn that into an educational course or separate aspect of their business as advisory component of their business. And one thing that's more personal to me, I've come across more recently, was even my wife, who's a teacher, saw a need for, she teaches advanced English for kids, sixth grade, and seeing a need for some kids who are migrating into that space into advanced learning English, and maybe hadn't taken some things early on that really is going to make it very difficult for them as they enter it. She saw a need to maybe have a separate session with them before they get in, so they can be better prepared to succeed and give them the highest chance to succeed. And she saw that gap, that problem, and transition, and proactively set up a course and group session, and went to go market it, didn't have fear around it. And she took a problem and some of her experiences and applied it to really solve a need, and really help some of these kids out as they transition to a new space. And so it's wonderful to see there's a little gap. It doesn't have to be massive in nature, but identifying those problems and seeing how that could help serve others, and then likelihood that could actually breed into something that could be something as a side business or a full-time business, depending on the growth and level you want to take it. So sometimes you don't need to look far, right? We always want to kind of reach out sometimes, say what's the best investment out there, but there's probably some things that you may just take for granted sometimes, that you do so well, or the experiences, that good or bad, that really have really helped and shaped who you are and how you think and what you've learned, that could be such a massive benefit for so many people, and just kind of have to explore it a little bit more. Now, sometimes, even for myself, I see as my kids, sometimes I share them things and I think they maybe don't accept it right away because they want to explore for themselves. They want to learn for themselves. And I get that. But sometimes having other outside influences could be very helpful. So, one of the other things that as you kind of start taking, so doing that first stage of kind of that introspective look, like around your life and things that maybe problems you can solve or things that just you're passionate about, maybe getting a starting point. But then you actually have to do something with it, right? As a person who's a fact finder, I like doing research. I can easily spend a lot of time looking at things, researching them, diving deep, getting into the weeds, and then never doing something. I won't bore you with my details around when I did have my real estate journey, investment journey, and it took me a while, but once I got going. But what I would encourage more people to do is take action, regardless of what it is. Take some action, and it will just kind of build over time, even if it's small, to take some action. And so one of the things you could take action to outside of that first phase of kind of doing that deeper dive on yourself is to go to people you know and trust, and ask for their honest opinion about you, right? Sometimes it's hard for us to see things about ourselves, right? And because we can be self-effacing. I know there's many people like that, and you just assume everyone thinks this way or has these talents. But sometimes it's harder to see all the beauty we all have in ourselves, like in the skills and the talents we have. Sometimes we meet somebody to point them out to us, and so asking others to see what do they see in you that is great, right? Something unique that they appreciate about you that maybe you just underestimate the power of, and because it's just normal for you. And, I see that all the time. When you get that outside voices, it really helps to shine a light on kind of what is potentially very obvious for most, but for when it's us, it's sometimes hard to detect. So getting outside opinions of others, and hopefully these are trusted people in your life that can give you honest feedback, because I think we need that often. I think for people who trust you because they want to help you, not because they want to bring you down or keep you down, like, or insult you. They want to really help you. Try to find those people. And, I know there may not be as many people as we grow older in our networks and groups we can trust on that, but finding those people are really important to give you honest and good feedback and help steer you into the areas that maybe you didn't recognize, and give you the truth. That's really key. One of the things that kind of relates to that introspection is the looking at you, kind of what you do separately outside maybe your current work environment, like those areas of personal hobbies or things and past activities or even jobs that you kind of experienced in your life. Like, what are some common threads to them that maybe touch on and give you a sense of kind of where you should be positioning yourself, where that you would enjoy more, right? But things that gave you energy and gave you the most enjoyment. What are those things, and what about them, right? And so, kind of doing that, sort of digging in there and sort of thinking through that, and maybe that helps sort of bring up areas that you need to go digging a little bit further on. And when you kind of get that sense of, in these are the areas that, hopefully with that combination, you can have a sense of some directions. And then really, once you've narrowed in those areas and really found like maybe a problem or two, or a certain area that you feel like, hey, there might be something there, to start doing something, whether it's creating some content, right? Things that you've grown and done for yourself, or whatever you've created for your own, you know, life and personally, or for someone else. Like, we created some content that you can share with others. You can use it to test a new idea that maybe you want to share with those people, are in your world, that trusted confidants that you can share your idea to see if it has any traction, and maybe they can help you build upon that idea. And you can even sometimes just go do help people for free, just to kind of help them kind of test these things out to see if there's something of value to any of the ideas, and start kind of moving the ball forward and getting that sort of that idea going, and using it as a way to iterate. I saw this one quote the other day, and it really hit me, is if you're not embarrassed by what you're sharing with others, you're too slow to the game, right? To folks who are, the biggest innovators and entrepreneurs, they know the biggest benefit they have is to fail and get going, right? To kind of get their ideas in motion, because you're going to build off them. The only way you're going to learn if there are any good ideas is that you get them in front of people to experience, and don't be embarrassed by what it is or take things personally. It's a way to gain feedback and know if you're going down the right direction, and building something or providing something that's actually valuable, and how do I make it even better. And so, almost kind of getting over ourselves and saying, okay, I have a bigger goal in this, in helping others, or some cause or thing in something important to us in our worlds. Like, that's my goal, and I'm not worried about all the trip ups and failures that come along with it, right? That's just part of the process, and that's what we have to get comfortable. We all do, and it takes time. And certainly, I know as humans, we want to be perfect, and obviously, reality is we can't. And so, I used to take myself so seriously about everything, be worried at how I look. Now it's like, that's the way you learn. That's the way you improve and get confidence, is to be exposed to things and do things that are super uncomfortable, and they start becoming a little more comfortable, and you kind of learn how to live with them, because that's what life is all about, right? Being put into situations that are going to put you into discomfort to grow and learn. And that's the same for any of your sort of investment or entrepreneurial ideas, like to continue to push them forward and really get that sort of entrepreneurial mindset sort of built and developed over time. And you start realizing and gaining confidence along the way. So I hope this was helpful to kind of, for those who are maybe trying to transition and move on to, and they want a new path in their life and they're trying to just explore it. Hopefully this gives you some food for thought to where you can invest in yourself in owning kind of your next path in life. And even if it's a side hustle type of thing, it gives you some ways to think about it, areas to explore, and hopefully it builds over time to something that you can just sink your heart and soul into and love for, and really help serve and provide tremendous value to something or somebody in this world. So thanks for joining me as always on the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you get some value out of this and it helps you along your journey as you're exploring your own investment, personal and professional lives, and really helping you build and create the most impact in your life and in the lives of others. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.